Hello, everyone. Good morning. Oh no, it's good. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you all are doing well. Dr. Eve here, coming to share just a little bit. One of the things that I'm trying to do more of is making sure that I have a routine. Routines are so vital to what we do because we are in the business of servitude, and in the business of servitude, there are often going to be people who are going to be following you. There are going to be people, even if it's just one. Y'all know me over here. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dr. Eve, and I cultivate cultures of well being using your strengths, stories, and strategies, touching one life at a time. Touch one life, touch millions. If I can touch one, that one could possibly reach millions. So I will have done my job. So it's very important that even with the one, you have to have routine. The best you got to do in order to get some new results with what it is you're doing and what you're called to do. You literally have to do what others won't do. And that requires making sure that you have a routine in everything that you do. So I came here today to share something with you because one of the things that helps me to move towards success and to achieve the things that I want in life is one to always think about, well, what's the worst possible case scenario? What's the worst possible case scenario? I remember when I was just a youngster, and of course, born really young, born newborn, 2.6 ounces, six in 1963, which is almost 60 years ago. And with that came its own set of challenges, developmentally, and what would later discover would be my ability to learn, and so or to learn to discover how I learn. But there was one thing that was really really important, and I'll share with you a little story. I remember when I was younger, I loved to spell. I was the best spelling bee. I was the champion of spelling bees. You hear me? And always in competition with my classmates and those in the region and those in the state, trying to get that spell on. However, what I realized that even though I was a really amazing speller, I learned how to spell and to read very well because they did something different back then that they don't do now. Like back in the day, they used phonics, right? Everybody ever heard of phonics? I remember buying Hooked on Phonics for my children because I knew that that was the game changer. I knew that that was the way to make sure that they were able to sound the words, break down words and syllables, and be able to, to spell and to read efficiently. However, that does not, there's another part to that story that's really, really important, and that is your ability to comprehend. So, what I discovered along the way as I was going through grammar school is that I was really having a very difficult time comprehending, because regardless of how well I spelled or how well I read, I was having a difficult time giving it back to my teachers what I read because I would get distracted. I'm an auditory learner, so I learned later on in life that, I learn best when I read out loud, which meant that I needed to hear myself, and that of course there was this problem. And so, in life, you're always going to be distracted, right? So you're going to be distracted by sounds. You're going to be distracted by people. You're going to be distracted by conversations and classmates when you're in school. You're going to be distracted by a lot of things. And so but what I understood was that I really had this really strong desire to learn, and the last thing I wanted was to keep doing the same thing and get to and ultimately get the same results, because we were a family of six, and my dad, you know with all of his strengths and ability to achieve through entrepreneurship, could not read or write. My mom, with all of her beautifulness and ability to take care and secure the family, was not a high school graduate. And so I knew that I didn't want that for myself. And so that was the thing. That was the underlying thing that made me push towards discovering how to learn. So I remember also that second grade, I was there in the second grade, and this is where I really realized that the struggle was real. And you take the test back in the day, you got A, B, C, D, E. They didn't give you F, but they gave you A, B, C, D, E. And I this one particular day, I got my test back, and she came around the class and she put all the tests down. Y'all know what that was like, face down. And I peeped at opened my test. I thought, I did well. I just flipped it over, and there on my test grade was the worst grade I had ever received. And I was so hurt by that. My feelings were hurt. I was shamed. I was hoping my peers didn't see it. And most importantly, I just didn't know what was going on. I was embarrassed. And also I was embarrassed at my teacher, that I felt like not only did I fail myself, but I felt like I failed my teacher as well, because I was in that grade. Miss Moran was my favorite. I was like her favorite. I was one of her favorites, but here I am like, oh wow, what's she gonna think of me now? As a kid, she's just looking at me. I don't know. For some reason, I locked eyes with her, and it looked like a look of, well, I guess it felt like a feeling of disappointment, or a look of disappointment, probably because I was disappointed with myself. And I remember, going home that day was the hardest thing, because I was like, how can I tell my parents this? How can I tell them that I got this bad grade on this test? Because to my parents, who did not have, like I said, my dad, who could not read or write, or my mom with the high school education, education was important to them, even though they did not have the ability to truly advocate, or they didn't know how to advocate. They didn't have that advocating skill set, where we teach parents, like, stand up for yourself, stand up for your children. We teach our children to stand up for themselves, right? And in a way that's efficient for them, right? And so I struggled with that for a while. I didn't want to tell my parents. Matter of fact, I didn't tell them. Um, oh no, I did tell them. I did tell them, but my dad was upset about it. He was upset about it, and I remember him talking to my teacher about it. As a matter of fact, he talked to my teacher about it, but I got a spanking. I got a spanking for it, because my dad, he didn't, education was everything to him. And I did get a spanking for it, and I didn't like that. I didn't like being spanked. I didn't like whooping. My body was. I didn't like my body. I just believe my body was not meant to be beat on, even if it was a spanking. But what he talked to my teacher about, he said that she told my dad that I was very talkative, and yada yada yada. And this is probably why I wasn't doing, but unbeknownst to her, that was not the problem at all. So I got a spanking about it. I didn't like it. And I had this auntie. I had this favorite auntie of mine. Her name was Ernestine. Ernestine was my mom's first cousin. Was one of my mom's first or second cousin, and she was so amazing. She really was a wordsmith. She was a wordsmith, and she would practice with me because I would have a hard time. She was my person who was teaching me about the spelling and spelling those really big words. And I knew that my auntie who helped me get to the spelling bee champ be the spelling bee champion, and the word was anti-disestablishmentarianism. That was the word that beat them all. And here's the thing, though. Here's the thing about that is, even though my auntie, was there and helped me to champion and help me to, I really just loved her because she would sit and talk with me, and she cared about what I was feeling, what I was going through, and she showed me different skills to practice, different skills to practice, and it would take a while. It would take a while. But one of the things for sure was I knew in my heart of hearts that I did not want to. First of all, I wanted my education. I did not want to live in poverty. I did not. I wanted to complete school because I knew my dad. I knew my dad didn't complete school, and I knew what that was like for him. It showed up in so many ways in his life, in his the way he dealt with us, the way he felt about himself. And a lot of times, when individuals are going through difficult times of learning, it shows up in emotions. It shows up in their behavior when their needs aren't met, and when I look back on it, it showed up in the way my dad behaved. Like, even though he was a master entrepreneur, he could, you know, he used his strengths to succeed because he knew that he also, we all have these stories where we don't want it in our life. He didn't have his dad at a very young age. He didn't want to be poor. He didn't want food insecurities. He didn't want those things. And when we think about our stories, usually there is some underlying thing that if we can hold on to that thing, that thing that will push us, that thing that we know we don't want in our lives, we will set those goals and develop those routines that will help us to succeed at the things that we want to succeed at. So I share this story with you because it was a very difficult journey for me learning how to learn. As an auditory learner, I integrated different skills, different technologies, different methods. Again, whether this personal development, career development, or business development, life, business, or career, you you still have to have goals. You have to have goals. You have to have routines. You have to have a plan, and you also have to know if the thing that's gonna keep you on track is that what what is the worst case scenario? What's the worst case scenario? The worst case scenario is that I would not finish school, or I would not graduate from high school because I had that as a thing in my parents. So for me, it forced me regardless of how it made me feel. um I pushed myself. If I could get a C, if I could just get that, I could get a B next time. But if I could pass, then I could. I never again wanted to get an E. Needless to say, I got quite a few of them in college, but then they went from E's to F's. But bottom line is, ladies and gentlemen, um, you can do it. You can do anything you put your mind to. You just have to make a decision. And when you make that decision, you develop a goal around that. And then who are you doing it for? Who can hold you accountable for succeeding at the goals that you have, right? And then what are the activities to help get you there? For me, in terms of the learning issue and not having to be faced with the feelings of failure, the emotional pain that I felt, embarrassment that I felt with my peers because my processor processed slower than theirs. Well, that's a thing, but it causes social anxiety. Because the standardized test says you got to teach a certain thing, you have to teach it a certain way, you got to teach all students the same curriculum, and that's where the advocating comes in. But my parents, my dad heard that my teacher say that I talk a lot, but talking a lot is also a symptom. It is a symptom of what an auditory learner goes through. And so, because my dad and no one understood the different learning styles that individuals have, he didn't understand that. So I got a spanking. I got a spanking for it. And this is where why I tell my stories. I tell my stories about life because I believe that there are things that we can share with parents, things we can share with those who are coming behind us, that a different way of approaching things, that could be leave less adverse childhood experiences on that child. Again, like I said, my dad grew up in a home where he didn't have his dad, and he suffered in poverty. He didn't have an education, and education was a top priority. I knew that about my dad, and I knew that the worst case scenario for me was that I would not learn if I would not finish, or I wouldn't have an education if I didn't learn how to learn. Or another worst case scenario would be that I wouldn't graduate from school like my mother did if I didn't find a better way. And so for me, I had these things in front of me. I had these worst case scenarios. And I think that we have to look at those. I think it's important. It's going to be the driver. It's going to be the thing that help us to make different decisions about not finding ourselves in those places. And so I'm finding today, what I did in that time, I'll share with you and all the parents. I talk about this in chapter 2 of my book, Touch One Life, Touch Million series, preparing for your season of elevation. I learned how to learn. I knew that I loved to read out loud, so I would read along like most, or back then they didn't have the audio books. When I was teaching my children, they had audio books. One thing for sure, I had good phonics, so I could spell and I could read very well syllables, and I could read very fluently. But I didn't understand, and it was because of the distractions. It was because I was an auditory learner. It's because many of the styles in our classrooms didn't fit my learning style, right? Now we have VARC, we have awareness, we have education around children's learning styles. And so we can advocate for our children now. And the other thing was the support system that I had with my auntie Ernestine, who was a master speller, who I could talk to about anything. My dad would just punish me. I got a spanking about that, and I didn't like spankings. But just to not keep running on, so what I eventually did, and I'm gonna tell you, parents out there, is what I did was I knew that if I could hear it, if I could hear the words being read to me, then I could understand. So what I did was I would begin to read everything into a recorder, because I knew that if I could just not read it don't read it the first time, don't read to comprehend it, because I'm not going to get it. I'm going to have to go back 2 or 3 or 4 times to understand it. And so, and if I get distracted, I'm going to have to start all over again. So what I did was I would read it into the recorder, and then I would listen to it. And if I could listen to it, I'm going to get it. And that was the awareness that I needed for me. That was the security that I needed to understand. Okay, well, I may can't do it like the other kids do it, but I can do it this way. And and it was an amazing method for me when I really realized how I learned. I was able to pull off the A's and the B's. I was able to say, okay, well, this is what works. My brain don't work like yours. Like, I had some delays, and some of the most amazing people, and I want you all to take this away. Some of the most amazing people and leaders of multi-million-dollar companies are people who had delays. When I think about Virgin, look it up for yourself. Virgin Airlines. He had ADHD. His neurodiversity is so important. When I think about JetBlue, why is it all these airline guys though, right? JetBlue, he didn't have a high school education and he had a learning disability, but he loved flying planes. And so he flew the planes, the paper ones, until he could buy a company, and a company that of planes, right? Then I think about the young lady on Shark Tank, gurus, gurus at marketing and developing and learning disabilities, y'all. There are so many giants out there who have these disabilities. And we have to understand that just because they call it a disability, it's just I think we should rephrase it. I think there is a strong need to rephrase um, rephrase that, because I don't see it as a disability. I think that we need to rephrase it to be something um, uh, powerful. I think maybe we should coin a new term. I don't know about you, but I think we should coin a new term. Um, Different ability, um, diverse ability, diverse diverse ability. Y'all, we need to coin that term for learning. Diverse ability, because I think that we give our folks a bad rap when we want to just say that, oh, he or she has this disability, learning disability. How about we say, call it a diverse ability? Because that way we know that here it is, this woman, me, who had this diverse ability because of um, unforeseen circumstances in her life, because of the developmental delays and things like that. Thank you. Um, but it didn't stop me from getting the PhD, because I had a diverse ability, not a disability, but a diverse ability, which means that it was different. It was different, y'all. And so we need to coin that today. We're going to make a new word, diverse ability. And I think that we need to champion more around that. And we need to have our parents understand that just because our brains, the way we think about things, there's a different order. There's a different order. So, for those of you who have not purchased my book yet, this is chapter 2 of my book, Nobody Noticed, and where I share about my story and I give you links and resources that you can use to help your children understand the way they learn, and how you can empower them to think about it a different way. It is not a disability; it's a diverse ability. We coining that today, y'all. It's going in the book. It's going in the text. So I'm really excited to have been on this journey with you all. You all have stories too. Many of you are trying to figure out life and figure out how to. Many of you are trying to figure out how to advance, how to develop, how to earn more, how to grow yourself, your through personal development or career development, or just leadership development into entrepreneurship. There is indeed a way to do that. And one of the things that I do as a leader is I help you to cultivate that well-being for yourself, because that's what it's all about, is getting you to that place of happy, that place of content, that place of prosperity, that place of joy, that place where you are economically stable. And so with that said, it requires, what we teach over here in cultivating cultures of well-being is your strengths, your strategies, and your stories. I share stories. These are the stories. Not only do I share these stories when I'm teaching and developing new programs, but I also use these stories to write books. And so you have stories too. You can also be an author and a speaker and a leader. You can also develop and use what you have in your hand to become even more. You can also use your degrees in a way that your degrees are that thing that kind of sets you apart, because there are many who don't have degrees who are multimillionaires. But then there's those with the degrees. That's that set apart. That's that thing that sets you apart, because again, if you do have a degree, you can also package that. You can also package your ability to teach things that you know, right? So anyway, this is Dr. Eve, everybody. Want it to be routine. Remember, your routine is vital. You have to set a routine for whatever that is in your life, for your physical, a routine for your psychological, a routine for your mental, a routine for your spiritual health, and a routine for your financial health. Your financial health requires you to think about how you spending your money, how you gonna make more money, how not to cap yourself in a salary, how not to leave yourself behind, but walk along the journey and build out other streams of income through very careful attention to your finances. So I'm Dr. Eve, everyone. I am a health and human service educator, and I cultivate cultures of well-being. You help you to use your strength, strategies, and stories for economic stability and well-being. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you like the video, please share the video and leave a comment. If you are ready and would like to get a discovery of your own, please click the link right here and go to my page and get yourself a discovery session. This is all possible for you too, no matter where you started in life. Remember that there's God had a plan, and it's to prosper you. And don't let nobody tell you otherwise. Peace and blessings, everybody.